IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 107th episode of Shunya One. We have Viram Shah with us today. Viram is the founder of a company called Vested Finance. He runs a really interesting business, right? The idea is, how do we allow people in India to invest in the US stock market and invest at reasonable amounts of money, not have to make like these really large accounts? It's a really cool conversation and we get into a lot of nitty-gritties around the space. Do give it a listen. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, welcome to the show, Veeram. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been a listener, you've told me, of the podcast, and now you're here. And it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's like a fanboy moment for me.
Are you serious? Have you listened to all 100 plus episodes?
I wouldn't lie, but I have listened to a majority of them, though.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's impressive.
I know. That's always good to hear, right?
That's impressive.
Yes.
Was this part of research before you did your startup, or was this just someone recommended it to you?
Or are you a podcast listener?
Yeah, that's the last one, I think, because I used to live in the US, and there I used to listen to podcasts like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so after coming back to India, I was like, are there any podcasts here? And you guys are doing a great job. So I listened to a bunch of IBM podcasts, actually. So
Nice.
cool.
Thank you for that plug.
Yeah.
But welcome to the show. Why don't you, actually now, since you mentioned it, tell us about yourself and the Vested story so far.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Mumbai, and I grew up in a very traditional family business kind of family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was working with my dad for a long time. And that's when I realized kind of three things. One was the fact that I wanted to stay in the business world, so I wanted to do entrepreneurship. I also realized that I did not want to be in the old economy business. I wanted to do something more exciting. And also realized the importance of capital efficiency, because that was a traditional Gujarati business, and I knew how they used to think about money, which I've applied a lot to now Vested when it eventually started.
Well, what's your dad's business? What kind of business is it?
He does ship recycling. Actually, it's pretty cool. I used to go as a kid and watch these huge 10,000 ton.
In
Bhavnagar.
Yeah. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So it used to be 5 a.m. journeys to the shipyard. It was an exciting time as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah. And then go into the ship. It's completely empty. And you get to become like the captain for a while. And it's pretty fancy. As a kid, I didn't want anything else.
Nice.
Yeah. But then the style of doing business was what I did not want to do. And so eventually then after that, ended up in engineering and got obsessed with the tech world. So tried starting a couple of things then. Did not really take off. And found my way to investment banking after engineering. So I spent about 3 years working with JP Morgan. That was a life-changing experience. I worked in Mumbai and Hong Kong, covering tech and telecom companies. So that's the only link I had to my engineering, where I did telecom engineering and ended up in banking. And when I was there, I kind of always wanted to start something, so that itch was there. I got that global exposure at JP Morgan. And so I figured that I wanted to do something global. I realized that that was kind of the interesting thing for me. So when the opportunity came to me to go study at Berkeley, I went to do my MBA at Haas and spent about 2 years in the Valley there. And as soon as I got there, I got completely gripped into the entrepreneurship cycle. Everything there was so vibrant, and tried a bunch of ideas in the first year then as well. And one of them was in the electric mobility space. One was in data analytics, but nothing, again, really took off. And then the last summer, the sort of idea for Vested was born. And it was actually a pain point that I felt when I was in JP Morgan. So I was learning finance then and started doing a bunch of investing, but realized that I couldn't really invest in a lot of the companies that I was using on a daily basis. As a millennial living in India, you have interaction with global brands on like an everyday basis. You wake up, you brush with a Colgate, you use iPhones, you use Google, Facebook, but we're not really allowed, we weren't allowed to kind of participate in their growth until now in an easy manner. So in the summer of 2018, that's when this entire pain point came back to me. And I had a classmate of mine, Darwin, who's from Indonesia. We both used to bounce ideas off of each other the entire first year, and he used to be my sounding board we had this entire 1 hour session every night almost discussing ideas. We have a group called Picking Pickaxes. And
Picking pickaxes.
yeah, so
That sounds interesting.
it was earlier digging gold, but then
Okay.
but then we realized that
That's-
the pickaxe is actually where the money is to be made, and the gold
Yeah,
is not where the money.
selling shovels.
It's infrastructure that makes the money and not the gold. And it eventually changed. But so I pitched this idea to him, and he, being from Indonesia, also could relate to it. The fact that it's very difficult for investors anywhere across the world to create a global portfolio right now. A lot of people have their exposures locally and in
Right.
their local markets. But if you want to go internationally, it's one, super cumbersome, and the second, it's very, very expensive.
So actually, I don't think you can you lay it out in a nutshell, right? What the business is.
Yes. Oh. So what we do essentially is we simplify US stock investing for investors outside of the US. So we have started with India as the first market, and eventually, because we are an international founding team, come from Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and India, we want to enter different markets and are looking at markets like the Southeast Asia, looking at UAE as potential markets. So
So basically letting people globally invest in US stock.
yes.
And the thesis is great, right?
is. It's
Because
really interesting.
and the fact that you started with the fact that we use these brands. So people globally know these brands, obviously, but there's no legal, easy, non-cumbersome way to invest in them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there never was. Like, what were people doing all this while?
Yeah.
While these companies just grew. Although just as American guys were getting their share.
Yeah, exactly. We, as a part of our customer research spoke to a bunch of people and realized that majority of them had some cousin or some relative in the US who they would send money to and ask them, hey, just buy 10 shares of Apple for me, and then have no way to figure out how to tax that money or how to bring it back. So that was a clear signal for us. And in fact, we did one experiment where we had a bunch of people on our wait list. So we launched a landing page in October last year and had people signing up on that landing page. What we did was we offered them an Excel spreadsheet and said, these are 50 companies, PayPal has money, we will invest on your behalf. And literally 5 people trusted random folks on the internet and sent us their money and said that invested in these 5 companies and I'll get it back from you 1 year later. So that was quite a sign for us that there is demand for something like this, and we should find a solution.
I'm looking at you, Amit, because I think people have asked you to put money for them because of your US heritage.
But I am not organized enough to manage that kind of thing for people, man.
I'm sure your cousins have asked you.
Many people have asked, but there's just no way. I get nervous holding other people's money. Especially, I know what my problems in life are, right? And one of my big problems in life is I don't know how to manage money well. So if I am managing other people's money and doing a poor job of that, then all those cousins who are doing this really nicely with me right now will be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Give me my money back. And I don't want to be in that. So I just, it's something I stay as far away from as possible.
Yeah, but again, I've not just thought of doing this or probably asked at some point, just never ended up doing it myself. So I know what you're talking about. It happened all over again with Bitcoin, by the way.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, in fact, that has put us in a tough spot because everybody feels like we are a fly-by-night operator who's just going to bounce with taking their money because everybody was burnt by their entire crypto experience.
Oh, man.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I can see that being a problem, right? It is one where, you come across as the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome that?
We did a lot of work. So a key challenge for us, it still is trust, right? We're a new brand and people have to trust us to transfer money, especially internationally, wire it. So one of the things that we did early on was we load a small amount of money in your account once you open an account. So we load $5 of actual money into your account once your account gets approved. So that means that you can, one of the key features on the platform is actually that you can buy fractional shares.
Okay.
So for example, if Amazon costs $2,000 per share, you can start investing from literally $1. So what people would do, they would use those $5 and invest it in 10 different companies and see that the trades are actually going through. They would see that trade confirmation. They would get that comfort. And so then we saw that everybody who was then funding their account had spent those $5. So that was kind of something that we call it a seed bonus, was boosting our adoption.
Interesting.
The other thing that we did was an intense customer focus. So what we've done from day one is speak to every customer who signs up on our platform. Earlier it was us WhatsApp calling when we were in the US as founders. Now the entire team takes efforts to just speak to every customer who signs up to understand what they're thinking when they're signing up, because it's such a new product. So we need to make them comfortable before they do it.
So are you adding other things like advisory services to this kind of thing, or is it just right now a trading platform only?
So we started off with the thesis. So if you look at the platform right now, it offers 120 stocks and ETFs for free, for commission free.
Okay.
So the insight from our customer research was that people know of these global brands that they're using and they want exposure to those brands. Apart from that, there's not real exposure to what are the global companies that are listed on the US exchanges. So what we did was we limited that universe in the first product, but we were able to keep our cost bases low because of that, the way we negotiated our deal, which is why we could offer it as a commission-free product.
Right.
Now, after being in the market for a few months, we realized that people want advisory. Beyond these companies, they don't know what to buy. So the next feature that we're launching, which is a key feature we've been working on, is these pre-built portfolios.
Yeah.
So there's a portfolio for digital cash that we're launching, which is just everything to do with a digital company, so the likes of Amex, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Square. There's also a SaaS portfolio. So beyond the companies that you know, now you can also invest in these portfolios to kind of diversify your platform, diversify your portfolio across different strategies.
Wow, that's like a digital mutual fund of sorts.
Yeah, international mutual fund with all the best global companies in the world.
Nice. So
Commission free.
yeah, coming back to the origin of this again, right? What were, and I'm curious about this, beyond the cousins angle, what were the legal ways to do this, however cumbersome? I just want to know how much pain right now you're really taking away.
Yeah, there were. So this is not a new idea. Just generally investing globally is not something that we developed overnight. It's been there since a while. And banks have partnered with providers to be able to offer something like this since like 10 years ago.
Right.
But if you look at the entire experience, nothing was localized to the Indian investor. So one of the key things that you would notice from our product is it's super easy to use. Whereas what the earlier solutions that were available were all optimized for global audiences across the world. So it was a global broker that was offering it, and there was nothing that an Indian could kind of relate to on that platform. So one unique thing is that trading becomes very difficult in the international markets because of regulations outlined by the RBI. Right. So then by default, this becomes a longer term investing play. All the existing solutions were, if you look at the interface, optimized for traders. There was no way where you could get an easy way to just buy 5 companies that you wanted to buy and not have to figure through 10 charts before doing something like that. So the UX was something that was super difficult. The other thing was that it was cost prohibitive. So when I started or wanted to start investing when I was at JP Morgan, the platform required a $5,000 minimum deposit. So 3.5 lakh rupees in one go, I gave up then itself. I was like, I don't have that much money. The other thing was you're forced to pay around 300 to 500 rupees as commission. So every trade that you make, you give up 500 rupees.
Right.
And for the value conscious Indian investor, that pinches a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing also, in addition to that, was you had to buy full shares. So as I mentioned, if Amazon is $2,000, you have to shell out $1.5 lakh in just one go
share,
to buy just one share. So all of those were high financial barriers. And lastly, the information barrier was super high. So there's this unique piece in our business wherein you're required to transfer funds and bring funds back. So there's this FX piece that comes in. Nobody would help you out with what to do. Like they would just tell you, you have to contact your bank and figure it out. Yeah. And if you go to an HDFC branch to try and figure this out, we went to 20 branches to figure this experience out. And literally every time the branch manager would call somebody, ask them, what am I supposed to do in this case? Then they would come up with, okay, these are these few forms that you need to fill. And then you go back, try to fill it and come back with it. So
that was the acid test of this platform for me. I said, if you make me go to a branch, I'm not signing up.
No, but I think that was like one of the massive pain points, right? I mean, like I remember my old business, we used to get wire transfers coming in from different countries, right, for different work that we do. And it was always such a painful, non-transparent, no information kind of black hole. The customer would say, I wired you money. 6 days later, I'm still waiting. I'm like, it's a wire. It should reach me 24 hours at the most. And it would just and you'd just never be able to trace where the money is. Like, I remember that one time money got lost for about 18 days. And then after that, the person at the bank told me something like, we don't know what this is coming from, so we withheld it. And I'm like, you've withheld it without telling us? And I mean, like, I'm inquiring about where this transaction is. Yeah. And you're still like not
That's
telling me.
That's why PayPal exists, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's still not solving everything. It's like high fees. And
so big
people still solving just Forex.
Yeah, I know. It's a big solution, I think, in that sense, right? I mean, like, it's something that really does solve that part.
Yeah, for example, when I first withdrew money as a test from our platform, the money was held at the bank and I still don't have that money. It's never come to me because I need to reach out to an RM to try and explain to them why I got this money, and I just haven't gotten the time to be able to do that.
Honestly, your RM is not the guy who's going to be able to help you. You're going to need to talk to the Forex desk. Your RM is going to tell you that I need to find out, and then he'll take 6 days, and then he'll come back to you saying that we need to talk to the Forex desk. And then he'll be like, he'll not give you a phone number, because the Forex desk, they won't give you a phone number unless you're somebody who has like millions of dollars in Forex. So you don't get a phone number. What you get is you get the RM doing a conference call.
Wow. I did not know that.
I've been through all this stuff, man. It's not fun.
Yeah. So what we did to solve that is actually we partnered with a company that specializes in inward remittance. So what they do is they directly transfer INR into your account. And so you also don't have to pay that 2% markup that you would have to pay when the local bank converts the money.
Oh, nice.
So made it way more cost effective to bring the money back.
Okay, interesting.
So tell us about the quick process. Of course, you still have to work with existing regulation, right? That means Indian regulation, that means US regulation, and it's a bunch of things. It's Indian Forex regulations, then it's US Forex, then it's US trade. So how did you tie all this together?
It was a long process. So the first thing that we did was we got our license with the SEC as an investment advisor. So that allowed us to then partner with a broker in the US who we now open brokerage accounts with. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is coming to Vested, one of the first things that they do is they go through KYC. Like that is the key process. And that now takes about just 5 minutes. And by the next day or by the day after, the brokerage account is open in the US. And so that earlier, I spoke to an entrepreneur who tried to solve the exact same problem about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then you had to send in a bunch of papers signed into an address in India to try and open a brokerage account in the US.
So this is Aadhaar benefit in some ways? And
API benefits now across the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the back end is quite commoditized in the US because of the likes of Robinhood, Betterment, Wealthfront.
Right.
So clearing and execution has become way more cost effective.
Right.
Which makes such a business now way more
viable. Yeah.
Yeah, viable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool.
And then walk us through it. I mean, for everyone listening, I mean, I'm just curious. I just did this process. And I found it super smooth. So that's the whole reason, right? So how are you seeing people get on board now? How are you spreading the word? What's your target audience? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So first I can walk you through the process.
Right.
It's essentially once you go through the KYC, a brokerage account is open. The next step for you is to fund that account. So that's where this entire bank process comes, wherein you can only fund it through a bank with which you've had an account for 12 months. Mm-hmm. So that's the regulation there. So which means that we have to partner individually with the banks. We can't route all the money through one bank. And so where we've partnered with all of the big ones. So if you have to transfer funds, now you don't need to go to a branch to submit a form.
Right.
Our representative will come to you, just get your sign, get the amount, and submit the form to the branch. So that outward process becomes much easier. In fact, with one bank, it's online now. So it's an end-to-end online process.
Right.
Yeah.
The next after that is once your money's in, it's all great. You can start buying and selling. You can even hold cash. So the liquid cash is invested in a money market fund in the US, which earns around 1% to 2%. So it becomes kind of like a US dollar wallet. You can hold cash, you can invest as well. And once you want to bring the money back, you can withdraw it there. And that's where our partnership again helps deposit it directly in INR.
Nice.
Weird question, which I don't know if it applies to many people, but it might be a very specific question. Can you withdraw money into the US?
You can if you have an account under your name.
Okay.
Yeah. So for anti-money laundering laws, it has to come from a bank account which is under your name and go to a bank account which is under your name.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Interesting.
Wow. So there's that regulation too. So exactly, right? I think governments or financial institutions make half these things hard because they're just hedging for risk, right? Like if we make it too easy, then it's easy for money launderers as well.
Yes.
But clearly the world doesn't want that anymore. And like you said, APIs have made things better. Overall, the overall fintech space in India, as well as I'm sure in the US as well, is much more conducive to now digital platforms like yourself to sort of build solutions on top of. Coming back to what Amit earlier asked, right? For a zero commission brokerage platform like yourself, which is all the rage now. I mean, we have zero commission everything in India. We have zero commission everything in the US. People just expect that what commission? You can't get commission from me.
My uncles are all dying right now.
Yeah. So where do you see, I mean, apart from this ease of use, right? Which is great for people who are in the know and who have been waiting for something like this for a while. But what about, turning this into a real business? What's the long-term plan that you have now that you have the initial sort of start?
Yeah. So there are two things here. One is the fact that for us as a US broker, the revenue model is a little different from the Indian broker. So all of the US brokers who are offering commission-free trades, they are making money at the back for some or the other service. So, for example, Robinhood makes money by selling order flow, which is something that is not legal in India. Also, a lot of the brokers, what they do is they make money off of the idle cash that is lying in your account. So that is also, again, not legal to do in India. So as a zero commission broker in the US markets, we have different revenue opportunities that we can tap into. And that is something that we want to do once we get a broker license. Right now, we started off as an investment advisor, which is the fastest way for us to get to market. The other thing also driven by the insight that it's not a brokerage business that we are in because of the fact that trading is not conducive. People cannot take margin, or people cannot invest in derivative products in international markets because of RBI regulation. So it's more longer term investing. So for us, the revenue is essentially driven by a percentage of AUM. So what we want to do is first enable a platform that allows you to get your feet wet by investing in, say, some of these 120 stocks and ETFs. But what we then offer is a paid portfolio that you can invest in, which allows you to get exposure to different themes, allows you to get exposure to different strategies. So our monetization is more based on a percentage of AUM. And then lastly, what we want to do is this fund transfer piece. We want to eventually bring the costs down, but also get a small cut of the fund transfer so that we don't have to charge for the platform.
Right.
So that's the longer term play. And we have these key differences from compared to an Indian broker, where we can get revenue from other sources. So don't really need to charge the trade fees as such as commission.
Wow. So what's your ideal customer, and who you want to do a shout out to?
How do you find that customer, right? I mean, do you use some of the traditional avenues that people are using right now for wealth management services? Or, because I think that just based on what you're just based on the profile of product I'm hearing right now, I think there's a lot of potential for distributions, for getting distributors involved with this kind of thing. But then there has to be a payout to them, which I don't know how that works in your model either.
Yeah. So for us, what is the ideal customer that we've gone after initially has been the folks in the tech space. So that's a very targeted effort to reach out to these people because they feel the pain the most, right? They know all of these companies. They use them on a daily basis more frequently than the others, but cannot invest in them. Right. So that's been our go-to-market, at least in this first 6 months that we've gone out. And we've gone directly to them. So we've reached out to them through content. We've reached out to them through offline events. We do offline events at companies. We do offline events at co-working spaces or at accelerators. So speak to the audience there. Eventually, what we want to do is going to be a mix of B2C and B2B2C, because now that we've been in the market and being the first movers, a lot of people have heard about us. We want to become thought leaders in the space. And so we're kind of inching towards that and have got a lot of inbound interest from wealth advisors who now want to diversify their product offering. And now as we launch these paid features, we have things to also share with them,
right,
which makes it much more aligned in terms of our incentives to offer to our clients. So the eventual strategy has to be through distribution partners. Alone, I don't think we have the reach to reach out to so many of the users that we want to. But we started off and got feedback from the users by reaching out to this particular target segment.
Very cool.
Yeah, very interesting.
All right. So, again, if you had to do a shout out here, what's the ideal kind of customer who you want to say, come to Vested and get started?
And how do they get in touch with you?
I think the folks who are listening to this, all of them are our ideal customers because they are certainly way more tech savvy than the others. And definitely, especially this podcast, way more tech aligned as well. So everybody who's listening to this, I would shout out to them to check out Vested at vested.co.in.
Awesome. Great.
All right. And do you want to give like a Twitter handle or somewhere where they can just talk to you directly?
Yeah. So our Twitter handle is vested_finance. So they can reach out to us there. We're super responsive. And also our Facebook page at Vested Finance.
Another question I had was, you mentioned that obviously since you're building the product now and it's super early, you're talking to everyone, all of your customers. This seems to be a thing with a lot of these new companies like Superhuman and everyone, right? Like where it's literally one-on-one, talk to people, build your product, evolve that. How has that experience been for your team so far, or as a founder yourself? Like, everyone says this. Everyone says talk to your earliest customers and so on, right? So tell us a little first-hand info on what have you got to hear?
I think it's the most exciting part of running this business for me. To wake up, and I have an hour in the morning where I respond to all of the questions that people have asked us on intercom or on our email, and that has essentially been the driving factor for our product build out, like our feature rollout. So every feature that we are now rolling out has been requested by at least 20 customers. That is our threshold. Mm-hmm. If more than 20 people recommend it, it gets added to our feature backlog. So it's been by far the best way for us to know or build out our product roadmap and also to understand what are the pain points that they're still feeling that we need to solve. So it's something that has been super, super useful in terms of connecting with what the customer is feeling and also what are the pain points that they still have from the product, which we should build out.
Very cool. I had a question on competition in the future now. Since you've said you've made things have become easier. It's no longer, the APIs in the world exist and so on. And you've built this out. How do you see yourself, defending against, let's say, really big fintech players who could obviously just build this out and take advantage of their distribution?
Yeah, that is something that definitely keeps me up at night. And what I believe is that the product or the offering that we have or the technology that we have is not the moat in this kind of a business. What is going to be the moat is the distribution that we get. And being first movers, we want to capture that distribution channel before anybody else can. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that we've been working on. And also, on the other hand, I've also realized that India generally requires a high level of service, especially for a product like ours, which is something which is very new. So that focus on building out a strong, robust customer success team is something that again separates us from the others. And we followed a model where we have different customer success folks, but we also have wealth specialists who we've hired in each city, who actually goes and meets the customer one-to-one, because that's when they feel that comfort with a new brand like us on how to start using the platform. So I think it's going to be these things rather than just the platform that is going to help us defend ourselves.
Awesome.
Right, cool. So that seems like a great place to end. Guys, just a reminder, all of you, just a reminder, everybody, please do subscribe to our Slack channel. Please go to ivmpodcast.com/Shunya One, and over there's a button for joining our Slack channel. Send us your email address and we'll add you to the channel. Also, please do make sure that you do send us a rating or review. That really does help.
All right. Thank you, Viram. Thanks for this show, and hope you listen to it yourself when this comes out.
I'm surely going to cringe when I listen to it this time.
1.5x will help you.
Yes, it will. It'll make your voice sound nice and tinny.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
All right. This was a great show. Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you enjoy listening to content on the IVM Podcast Network, let me tell you about a couple of things that you should check out this week. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh are back to share their love for the true crime stories. This week, they talk about the hit Netflix show Mindhunter. Want to welcome a brand new show onto the network. It's called Peak Planet. It's hosted by research fellow and engineer Karthik Ganeshan. In every episode, Karthik discusses sustainability issues that affect Indians through evidence-backed information. In the first season, he dives deep into air pollution and the discourse around it. I think this is especially important given the situation across the country these days. It's a Children's Day special on IVM Lives as Madhuri, Alika, Rutika and Abbas talk about pop culture they consumed as children and reflect on how they perceive it now. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by the CEO of Scoop Whoop, Satvik Mishra. They talk about how Satvik became an accidental entrepreneur. On the season finale of Keeping It Queer, Naveen and Farhad discuss their understanding of a breakup and how to get over them with maturity. Thanks, and we hope to see you again soon.
Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Careers in the new podcast series presented by Accenture, and I'm your host Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay. In this podcast series, we'll get you the latest and greatest in the world of technology that's shaping the future of business as we know it. We're talking intelligent platforms, cloud, AI, blockchain, extended reality, and a whole lot more. Every fortnight on Wednesdays, we'll have for you a hot topic with expert speakers from Accenture talking about top trends in the space, how these are changing the world and creating growth across industries. And more importantly, we'll tell you how you can learn more, build your skills and expertise to grow and stay relevant in your career. Episodes out on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcast from.